Does Fallout 3 need a remaster? Yeah. I mean, there's not really much else to say. The gunplay's kinda meh, graphical fidelity has always been something that Gamebryo games lacked, and this could be a skill issue, but playing on controller is miserable due to the lack of accessibility options. So yeah, I think a remaster could help Fallout 3 a lot. But obviously this depends on where the game falls on the remaster remake spectrum. Is it going to be a Bioshock remastered or a Demon's Souls remake style? Because if we take a look at remasters, which is what this game's being called, typically it's only a graphical and performance upgrade we see. And I think if Fallout 3 was only to see these improvements, it'd be a massive missed opportunity. Although yes, it'd probably be the way to satisfy the most amount of people, because you always get those groups that will complain if new, unoriginal features are added into the game. There are so many gameplay and quality of life improvements that more recent entries in the Fallout series have introduced that a remaster of 3 would benefit from greatly. Quick Loop for example, Fallout 4 added into the series and we have mods to bring it back to 3 and New Vegas, and oh my god are they amazing. Whereas before I'd either just click take all as soon as the menu pops up or ignore looting entirely, Quick Loop improves the looting experience so much by speeding up the tedium of having to wait for a menu to load in the heat of combat. And it's one of those elements that dates the gameplay slightly of 3 and New Vegas in comparison to more recent entries in the franchise. Another one is Iron Sights. This one I'm slightly more 50-50 on, because in a weird way, Fallout 3's non-iron sight aiming is definitely a unique part of the game's identity that I don't think should be lost in a remaster. Thankfully, the introduction of iron sights wouldn't hinder this, because while it's an issue that's already been solved, New Vegas introduced iron sights into the series and made them toggleable in the options menu. If a Fallout 3 remaster were to do something similar, it'd satisfy both those Fallout 3 purists and those who like the immersion or gameplay aspect that having iron sights brings. Next up, I think you can make a pretty good argument against this, but I think it should probably be included in the game anyways, and that's Sprint. See, on the one hand, the game's map wasn't built with the intention for the player to be able to run across it or utilise the extra momentum sprinting can give a jump, and this could lead to some issues. But at the same time, as nice as Gotta Start Somewhere is, I don't want to be listening to it whilst bored out of my mind holding down the W key on my way to Rivet City from Tranquility Lane. Sprint's also a feature that pretty much every game has nowadays, and can just make the user experience a lot more engaging because it's not just something used from getting from one map marker to another, it also adds a whole new element to gunfights where you can sprint to close the distance for your combat shotgun. Speaking of adding new elements, the settings menu could do with an expansion. Every Fallout game I've played on console suffers from having a ridiculously high dead zone. Give us the option to adjust it. It's one of those things that makes aiming on controller in these games so difficult. Although this could just be a skill issue. I also think an FOV slider should be standard at this point. It helps so much with motion sickness. With even Starfield and 76 having one now, it'd be weird if a new release of Fallout 3 lacked this option too. PC could also sort of do with an expansion of settings, and by this I mean the in-game settings. We don't really still need a launcher, do we? I don't want to have to exit out of the game every time I want to change something simple. And as they're most definitely going to be upgrading the visuals of this game in some form, I hope they at least keep the game looking like Fallout 3 if that makes sense. The main issue I think vanilla Fallout 3 and New Vegas both share is that the worlds just look incredibly flat, mainly as a result of how there are only active shadows, and this leads to there just being a feeling of something missing, you know? The sun could be directly behind the walls of Megaton and there wouldn't be a single shadow outside of those casted by NPCs. And then if they are going to be recreating assets as well, although I think it's going to be unavoidable to lose some of that Gamebryo charm, especially with the NPC faces, I hope they at least end up taking a good artistic direction with the remaster, so it ends up being worth it in the end. But I think that's about it for what I'd like to see changed in this remaster. Obviously there's some stuff like, should the percentage based speech check stay? What about big guns and small guns being in separate categories? Weapon mods? Or anything else that New Vegas added on top of 3 I think you can make an argument for. Now I'm sure a lot of people do just want an excuse to play Fallout 3 again, and me included. It was my introduction to this franchise and is still a game I hold very dear. So whether or not it has some new improvements or is the exact same game with a fresh coat of paint, I'm gonna be there no matter what. And I think this is something pretty important to talk about, because although obviously there's probably not much we could do to get these features added into the game now, The reason I think it's so important to talk about these features is because, well, we might not be able to just simply mod them back in. See, the Oblivion Remaster leaks that came out before Bethesda's internal roadmap leaked indicated that Unreal Engine 5 may be involved in some form. And if that's the case, modding will most likely be impossible via unofficial means. UE5 has built-in de novo anti-tamper, and this is something you really can't get around. So if the game lacks some of these essential features, there might not be all that much we can do about it. And before anyone says this was the case for the Oblivion Remaster, it might not apply to Fallout 3. Yeah, that's kinda true. And although that's a possibility, I don't think it's a very likely one. Mainly because they're both called remasters by ZeniMax themselves. So I think it'd be kinda weird to have two drastically different remasters in development at the same or similar time. Because these leaks are kinda old, the roadmap being from 3 years ago pre-pandemic, there's a chance that one or multiple of these games here may have been delayed or cancelled. Although, in my opinion, it'd be pretty dumb to cancel a remaster of Fallout 3 when you have a TV show you can capitalise off of next year. Anyways, that's gonna be all for today. What sort of features would you want to see from a Fallout 3 remaster? I would love to know, and I hope you enjoyed. Thank you to my channel members, your support really helps out a lot, and I greatly appreciate it. If you liked the video, maybe consider subscribing and probably turning on notifications, because my upload schedule is as consistent as Starfield's quest design. And yeah, that's it. Bye.